Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So if you saw my last video, you know I got a drum take that I'm pretty happy with. I'm pretty stoked, and I've heard it back. I haven't heard it all the way through because I just, keep stopping and starting with different things. I probably should have listened to it all the way through and make sure there was no glitches, but we'll do that now. And the takes look good. The wave files look good. Didn't look like there was anything going on the wave file that would have alerted me to a mistake or some kind of terrible error that would make the track no good. So what I'm going to do is, all I did since I finished the track is I took each individual track in the Zoom. And there's several videos that I've made over the last year or two. I guess I started this about 2 years ago. So over the past 2.5 years or so, there's been quite a bit of documentation of how I record, take it into the computer on Audacity, do some cleanup work, bring it back in, and I typically double it. So my workflow was this. I recorded on the first 4 tracks, right? No compression, no effects. I told you about how I mic'd it and everything. Now, I went into the computer, and all I did was connect with the cable, the proprietary cable, and then you go to USB, and then you go down to reader, and you hit enter. You'll see the icon, the hard drive icon on your computer, and then I open that up, and then inside you'll find the tracks. And in my case, what I did before I connected is I just checked with the track, and I went over to 1 through 4, and number 1 said mono 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those 4 tracks: mono 3, mono 4, mono 5, mono 6. So if you have any other tracks in there, that won't distract you. You'll just go right to those, which is what I did. Took mono 3 in, did a little high pass on it down to 20 hertz, just to clean up, in case there's stuff hanging around. This isn't the greatest room to be recording in, so bass kind of moves around, so we're going to clean that up. And that's the main thing, I think, that gives it a more professional sound. And then on that track, I took it down 1.5 dB, because at the end I must have gotten a little excited and a little too much snare drum. Then after that, all you have to do is export the track, and now I called it snare 1, and I export it and it goes to the desktop. Then I go back to mono 4, bring that one in, and that was the left overhead. That needed some amplification. It was 4.5 dB. I lifted it up, did the high pass, I exported it the same way. I called that one left overhead 1. Right overhead, same deal, sent it out. Right overhead 2 now is what it's called. And then finally, track 6 was the bass drum. Didn't have to do anything with that except, just do the high pass. And then sent that out, and that was called bass drum 1. Then, now these files are on your desktop, right? So I drag them into the Zoom, into the hard drive, and you isolate the audio on the track that you want. Drag it into that folder. So now I've got snare drum, left overhead 1, snare drum 1, left overhead 1. In track 3 I got right overhead 1. Track 4 I got bass drum 1, right? Or that's what they're now called. Now I go through on the desktop and rename each one. Snare number 2 now, drag that in. Left overhead 2, drag that in, because they have different names, right? Right overhead 2, bring that in. And finally bass drum 2, bring that in. Throw all those away, and then drag the hard drive into, the ones on the desktop that you don't need anymore, throw them away. They're now in the Zoom. Drag the Zoom icon to the trash, and then exit here. It'll say, are you sure you want to finish the session or whatever? And you say, yeah, exit, and that ends it. And now they're inside here. So now I'm going to take the unit, I'm going to go to track, and I want to put these drums on the back row. And by back row, if you think of it, this is the 1 through 8 channel strip, and then you click the button and you go to 9 through 16, and then finally 17 through 24 if you click the third button here. So I always put the drums all the way to the back, because I'm not going to adjust the drums. Once I put them there, I just leave them. And then I put bass and guitars maybe on the second strip, but the first strip is always going to have the vocals and maybe the main guitar. so that I can be adjusting those if I need to. Usually the vocals will need a little bit of, I try to get it where there's not going to be a lot of adjustment needed, but there's always a little bit of writing. You know, oh, if there's going to be writing, it'll be on the vocal. So I'll have that on the first track. Don't ask me why. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just the way I think of it. I think of the drums being the bottom, and if 17 through 24 is the bottom of the unit, that's where I think they should go. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the tracks where they're sitting, which is 1 through 4 on that first strip here. So we have this one lit up, and we've got the drum tracks in these first 4, and they're called mono 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so we're going to get rid of that by because I don't want them playing here while we're listening to the tracks on the back row. So I'm going to go to the file, and I'm going to look for new take, and that was mono, so I just went up in alphabetical order to N, and there's new take. I hit enter. Then I'm going to move over and do it again. File, new take. Okay, file, new take. This just to silence these. I don't want these playing at the same time. And now they're gone. So now I'll be ready to record the guitars in 1 and 2 when I'm ready to do that, hopefully soon. Now, let's go to that back row. Let's go to that back row. Oh, and also I'll leave everything else in place. We'll go to the back row. And now it says track 20. I need to go to track 17. Track 17 says new take, right? So I'm going to hit the enter bar, hit file, and now I'm going to go inside and I'm going to look for the snare. Snare 1. Good. I'm going to go to track 18, and that's where I'm going to put snare 2. Good. Move it over. New take. File. Instead of new take, I'm going to make this one be left overhead 1 or left overhead left. But I called it 1. Then the next one I'm going to move over, that's track 4, hit file again, there's left overhead 2, and every time you assign one of these, you'll notice that the track now has an asterisk next to it. That means it's assigned to a channel. Okay, now we're going to go new take on take 5, on channel, I'm sorry, I keep saying 5, it's actually 21. Hit enter, and the last one was 20, and before that 19, 18, and 17. Okay, now I've done snare, left overhead. Now I need to do right overhead. So I'm going to go find right overhead. It's way down here because it's in alphabetical order. Right overhead 1. Now I'll move over to track 22. I'm going to put right overhead 2 in place. Finally, the bass drum goes in 23 and 24. So file BD1, move over to 24, file BD2. So now all of the drum tracks on the back row, 17 through 24, have been assigned. So 17 and 18 are snare, 19 and 20 is left overhead, 21 and 22 is right overhead, and 23, 24 are bass drums. So it's the same track, nothing's changed, and they're exact copies. But I find that this doubling on drums really gives enough robust, signal to really make the drums sound powerful. Otherwise, they sound a little thin on here, honestly. Okay, now for playback purposes, let's just test it and make sure it's there. Okay, it sounds good, I'm happy with it, but it could sound a lot better. Okay, so for playback for everyone, so that you guys can hear it, or you girls, or everyone whoever's listening, don't want to offend people or whatever. For everyone who's listening, it'll now sound better, and I'll show you a little trick to make all your tracks sound better when you play back, and when you actually make your mixes. Okay, so you're going to go to Effect. Right now it's off, right? So I'm going to hit the enter button. I'm actually going to turn the little wheel, and it says mastering. The patch is number 00. It doesn't really matter because I adjust the patch. and I think this plus alpha, for whatever reason, just works. So you could pick whichever one you want or make a custom one. But what I'm going to do is go down to input screen and make sure it says master. So otherwise it'll start picking tracks. So I'm going to go to master. It just says master. Okay, then I'm going to go down to edit. And now crossover, everything's fine there. Sense high. I don't mind the crossovers on the 3-band compressor, but I'm going to lift the highs to 5. I'm going to drop the mid to 5, and the low is going to go all the way down to 5. The high is going to go up to 5. The mid, I'll try 5 again on that, and 5 on the low. Then I'm going to go to the gain on the normalizer, 0. I hate that. I don't need that. Okay, bass 202. Let's just try 555, but I may drop that back to 222 when I actually have the whole. So this will all change and I really do the mix, but just to make this drum sound good and give you an idea of how this works. 3-band EQ, I got that, was on 5, and the level's at 62. I don't like any kind of room tricks or anything, effects like that, so that's off the dimension thing. And then finally the patch level's 24 and the noise reduction is 0 off. I don't like any kind of self-imposed noise reduction, like, you know, Dolby or whatever, anything like this. Is called ZNR, and it's the Zoom's noise reduction. And no thank you. It puts some any kind of noise reduction puts an artifact in there that I can feel. It feels like, you know, like when you're listening to, I don't know if you ever listen to satellite radio like Sirius or whatever. It's highly compressed signal, and you can hear the compression sometimes, like pumping. And I think that's what noise reduction sounds like. Okay, so let's see what happens. Now, I will warn you, when you're in mastering mode, you've got to bring your master way down. You're going to blow your eardrums, blow up your speakers, blow your headphones, whatever. So I'm going to bring it way down, and we'll ease our way into this mix. Because if you leave it up the way you had it for recording, you know, on Unity Gain, boom, because this makes way, you know, you're pumping way more. You're putting some EQ in there and all kinds of stuff. So it's adding a lot. Plus, I've doubled the tracks, so that's like double everything. It's probably adding 3 dB, you know, overall. All right, so let's see what happens. Well, like I said, we're going to ease our way up with the master. That little spot right there, let me just make sure that was on with the guitar. Not that this guitar matters, because I'm going to redo the guitar, obviously. Like that soft touch right there. I'm really proud of that ending. Blah, 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 boom. I've never done a cymbal stop before in a song before, and the other thing about that is I was worried that I was going to whack the microphone every time. Somehow I never did. I never went ching. That usually would be the thing that I would just do over and over incessantly, would be whack the microphone and kill every take. And as you noticed, that was the very last thing. It was like the hardest thing for me to do, and it was like literally the last thing. So I could have played the whole part perfectly and then encountered that and screwed it up every time and killed the whole take every time. So I don't know how I made it through that take. I think I did a little more extra practice than usual during the time. One of the nights I came in here to do the takes and it didn't work out with the camera. That would have been a frustrating night because I ended up coming in here 3 more nights after that, and each time I would start by going, okay, I'm going to do the takes 5 times, do the whole song 5 times, and I would rarely make it through one time without butchering it. So it's kind of a miracle that I got through that take right there, and that it actually sounds sonically, usable. And I hope that any of this stuff that I'm showing you is helpful. Because you can get a lot more out of this than you would think if you know what avenues to take. If you're just kind of plug and play in it, it might be sounding a little flat and uninspired. But if you start getting creative and start getting into the machine, from the inside out, and start to think about it in different ways and use it in its full potential, I still think it's untapped. It's kind of amazing. This little piece of plastic has been my studio for 2 records. Pretty proud of this little piece of kit, the nice little machine by the Zoom company. I wish they would update it because I really don't think they've replaced it, mainly because of this mastering feature. For me, that's a deal breaker. I've got to be able to output in here and mainly do it in here, and this mastering software really helps me because I'm not there yet as far as using all these effects and making them all right. This thing just kind of makes it right for you. It's a little color by numbers-ish like that, and I need that help next time.